morning.
Good morning.
Nice to see you. Welcome. Your first time here, huh? No? Okay, good. Okay. So, here we are, the first Sunday Morning Zen of 2019. Yay! We made it. Here's a poem by Rilke. You are not dead yet. It's not too late to open your depths by plunging into them and drink in the life that reveals itself quietly there. That's what we're doing when we're sitting zazen. We are plunging into depths. So it's not too late. That inner life of ours is so important. That spiritual life of ours. And zazen is a wonderful way to open to that life. So today I am talking about Bernie Glassman's book, Infinite Circle, which he wrote, published in 2002. But it's based on a series of workshops he gave when he started the Zen community of New York, which I don't believe is still going. But this was before he started his plunges, his street retreats, and his Auschwitz bearing retreats. This was all before that. And we're going to study this book. We're going to start every third Sunday of the month, right after Sunday Morning Zen. We have a few copies in the bookstore. If we need to order more, we will. And it's his teachings on the Heart Sutra, the identity of relative and absolute, and the paramita, the precepts, I believe. Precepts are the precepts. Do not kill, in particularly, he's working on as being essential parts of Zen study and practice. Essential. So, we should begin to chant with, I'm going to pass this out, the Heart Sutra. Let's all chant that first. And I can pass this out. Ooh. So, some people think that, just chanting it in the original Sanskrit or English is enough. And if you really chant it wholeheartedly with your whole self, there's more coming. And I need one too. If you chant it with your whole self, without distraction, right? This is our practice, being right here now, just chanting. Yeah. So all of it is contained in the act of just chanting. And this is just his quote. When we chant in such a way that nothing else is happening, with all of our concentration, all our mental and physical energies are condensed into just being the sound, that first Avalokiteshvara. That is all that exists. If we're eliminating any trace of separation between subject and object. So we're really removing duality. It's nothing but awe itself, putting just all our energy And that is actually one definition of emptiness, shunyata, emptiness, right? Or what Bernie calls not knowing. All right, so let's chant Mahaprajna Paramita Heart Sutra. Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva doing deep prajna paramita clearly saw emptiness of all the five conditions, thus completely relieving misfortune and pain. O Shariputra, form is no other than emptiness, emptiness no other than form is exactly emptiness, emptiness exactly form, sensation, conception, discrimination, awareness are likewise like this. O Shariputra, all dharmas are forms of emptiness, not born, not destroyed, not stained, not pure, without loss, without gain. So in emptiness there is no form, no sensation, conception, discrimination, awareness, no eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind, no color, sound, smell, taste, touch, phenomenon, no realm of sight, no realm of consciousness, no ignorance and no end to ignorance, no old age and no end to old age and death, no suffering, no cause of suffering, no extinguishing, no path, no wisdom and no gain, and thus the Bodhisattva lives prajna paramita with no hindrance in the mind, no hindrance, therefore no fear, far beyond deluded thoughts. This is nirvana, all past, present, and future Buddhas live prajna paramita, and therefore attain anuttara samyak sambodhi. Therefore no prajna paramita is the great mantra, the vivid mantra, the best mantra, the unsurpassable mantra. It completely clears all pain. This is the truth, not a lie. So set forth the prajna paramita mantra. Set forth this mantra and say gate gate para gate para samgate bodhisvaha prajna heart sutra. So there are many translations of this beautiful sutra. And we had a book by Kaz Tanahashi on the Heart Sutra, and he had all these different translations. I also liked chanting it in the Japanese way that we also do. So this it's also known as the Heart of the Perfection of Great Wisdom Sutra. And it's taken from this 100,000 line sutra. This is like the essence, this 24 lines is like the essence of this wisdom sutra, Heart of the Perfection of the Great Sutra. So it's about emptiness. Emptiness, that's another important. It's not a concept, it just is, right? Emptiness. And Bernie tries to explain emptiness as being not knowing, and I think that's a wonderful, simple explanation of shunyata, of emptiness, not knowing, practicing not knowing. And he developed these 3 tenets of a peacemaker, and not knowing was the very first tenet to practice. You know, not knowing, being open. Because when you know, it really kind of puts you in a box. So that first word in the Sanskrit title Maha has got an amazing amount of meaning, and Bernie says that in a way the whole text is summed up in that title, Maha Prajna Paramita. And this book, Infinite Circle, you know, what does that mean? Infinite circle. What kind of circle is that? Anybody?
Perfectly imperfect, because it has a slight deviation and a slight open end, like a tea bowl, a tea ceremony that is not perfect.
Not perfect, yes.
And it's about breathing.
How big is this infinite circle?
The size of a pad of paper.
Well, it could be. But you know, is there an inside or an outside to this circle? Because he was a mathematician, so he used mathematics to give an example of what this means. You know, when you draw a circle, you know how big that circle by what's in it and what's outside of it, right? So in this infinite circle, you know, what is there anything outside of this circle? I know, just the title of the book is like...
I'll speak from misunderstanding. Because I thought infinite circle meant that there was no beginning and no end. If you have a circle, all points are equal and all points are connected. So I didn't really think of an inside and an outside.
Okay, well, all right, so you thought it was just no 2 points were connected in this circle, but then is it a circle if it's not connected, right?
Well, I thought all of them were connected, so you couldn't pick one to be the beginning and
one to be the end. Mm-hmm. Well, in mathematics though, right? You know, you have this circle, right? And that's a good way to look at it. You can tell how big a circle is by what's inside and what's not outside, and what's outside. If it's not inside, outside is inside. Isn't a circle a definition of a perfect form? I'm not a mathematician, so I don't know the answer to that question. Perfect form. Now that's interesting too. You know, what is a perfect form? A circle? I don't know. Maybe.
I was going to suggest just if you have two circles next to each other, is the sign of infinity. I'm not, that's as far as I've gone.
They're connected though, aren't they? They are connected.
Everything's connected.
And everything's so right. So let's see here. So this is what Bernie says. When we introduce the term outside, that automatically introduces the correlative term inside and creates a boundary, a circle. If there is no outside, for the circle is infinite, then not only is there no inside, there is also no circle anymore. That seems to be really large, doesn't it? Infinite, right? Infinity, infinite, yeah. What remains is a single entity, not a single entity, just one thing. And this is what he means by one body. One body is the entity that remains. And that's the fundamental meaning of Maha. Maha is all-inclusive. Nothing is left out. And that's how openness, right? That's what we mean by openness. Nothing is left out. How we practice, what we try to practice here, nothing, leaving nothing out. So, Maha is all-inclusive, nothing is left out. In this sense, Bernie's saying Maha also describes what's known as the way, the Tao, the way. Since Maha is no outside and no inside, it is therefore the way. No outside, no inside, the way. By contrast, people tend to think that the way is some kind of path, or that it refers to the way of doing things, or some sort of direction that we take. But the Tao is everything. Each of us is the way. Each of us is walking the way. Each of us is the way. Each of us is walking the way. I mean, we have to really kind of slow down and contemplate this. So he gives the example of, remember Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, right? Somebody tells her, follow the yellow brick road, right? But there is no yellow brick road. We're already on it. There's no yellow brick road and we're already on it. Wherever we are, this is the yellow brick road. That's the Tao, that's Maha. And Maha declares that there is no outside or inside to the path. Everything is the path. We've heard that before on the practices of a bodhisattva. We are all on the path. Where? It doesn't go anywhere. It's the pulsating of life everywhere. We don't go anywhere. It's the pulsating of life as it is. See why you have to meditate to work with this? Because if you're in your natural, normal, should I say, not natural, normal, speedy mind, it's hard to grasp this. Yeah. So Bernie, in practicing not knowing, he liked to do plunges into the unknown. This is practice realization. To plunge into something that you know nothing about, like the street retreats, like the Auschwitz Bearing Witness retreats, Rwanda, the Black Hills Bearing Witness retreat. Something that is definitely out of your comfort zone. And seeing what's up, what's going on here, what is that edge that we have that is very uncomfortable? Can we then get curious about it? And there's a beautiful quote that Bernie also said, that Roshi quoted in his talk a few weeks ago, or a month ago. Our tendency in life is to avoid things that frighten us. But in order to become whole, we need to go deeper into ourselves by reaching further and further into the things we fear. And for me, this practice really helps me with that, with this working with fear. I've been working with fear for a large part of my life, in really looking at things that are uncomfortable for me, that I really don't want to do generally, and becoming a little curious about it, and sometimes just pushing up against it. Because I know that if I didn't, I'd go hide somewhere. I can do that too. And so just, it's about just being curious about it, kind of having a light touch with it all, because it can get pretty heavy. Last month, November, I was really working with grief and sadness, and that's not a place that I like to be. But I felt like, okay, I'm going to bear witness instead of distracting myself a lot and not feeling sad or grief. I'm going to just kind of let myself do this gently, because it's a scary area for me. Ram Dass says, suffering didn't make me more fearful, it made me more real. I got that from a book I read over vacation. It's the new book that he and Mirabai Bush put together called Walking Each Other Home, Conversations on Loving and Dying. It's a wonderful book, really wonderful. And Mirabai Bush, I met her when we were working with Bernie in Montague. She was in Northampton, about 20 minutes away from Montague, and she had founded the Center for Contemplative Mind. So she came to a few of my hula classes even. Anyway, she's really good friends with Ram Dass, and they've known each other since when they used to study with Guru Ji. I've forgotten his name, the Guru in Maharaji, right, in India. So it's a wonderful book. So Ram Dass shares a lot of his thoughts about, it's all about love. Really, it's all about love. Yeah, but I love that, right? Suffering did not make me more fearful. It made me more real. And that's what we need, real, here. Bernie begins this book with a quote by Dogen, which Mark also quoted in his talk a few weeks ago. Think of not thinking. How do you think of not thinking? Non-thinking. This in itself is the essential art of Zazen. Zazen is not learning meditation. It is simply the Dharma gate of repose and bliss. The practice realization of totally culminated enlightenment. Wow. We better sit more Zazen. All right, let me say that again, all right? Zazen is not learning meditation. It is simply the Dharma gate of repose and bliss. The practice realization of totally culminated enlightenment. It is the manifestation of ultimate reality. Traps and snares can never reach it. Once its heart is grasped, you are like the dragon when he gains the water, like the tiger when she enters the mountain. For you must know that right there in Zazen, the right Dharma is manifesting itself, and that from the first, dullness and distraction are struck aside. Dogen. So, Bernie attempted to clarify this also in the book, Infinite Circle. And when he read that, he was getting his doctorate in mathematics, applied mathematics, and he was just kind of blown away by this 13th century thinker and what this person, the concepts that he was talking about, they were just starting to develop in modern physics and mathematics. And so not long after he read that, he found Maizumi Roshi at the Zen Center of Los Angeles and began to explore Dogen more and really helped Maizumi Roshi get the Zen Center of Los Angeles together. He was really into Zazen. And Myoyu Roshi has this great story where she says she's at the Palatine and she's got a center up in Wisconsin, right on the border there. She says when she just started, she remembers hearing Bernie saying, you know, we should get up early and start sitting at 2:30 a.m. Yeah, I think like they do in Japan. And she was a little worried because this was like her second session. But Maizumi Roshi said, no, we're gonna stick with our usual time, which I think they got up at 5. Started sitting at 5:30 or so. So Dogen, and Bernie is saying that Dogen is saying that Zazen or Zen meditation is the actualization of the enlightened way. It's the actualization of the enlightened way. So it's not simply a technique to learn to become enlightened or to learn to calm the mind. That's mindfulness. Mindfulness is definitely that. But Zazen, Zen meditation, is the enlightened way. And the simplest form of Zazen is sitting meditation, but Bernie also says it goes far beyond that. And as the Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, said, everything as it is the enlightened way. Now that's something to think about. Everything as it is the enlightened way. So we really have to open to that, because a lot of us have an idea that if we really sit a lot, we're going to get enlightened, right? I've been sitting a lot in hopes. No. Yeah, and also he calls Zazen the thunder and the lightning and the rain. It's got to be a car too. And Zazen is about eliminating this distance between subject and object, about eliminating duality. Zazen is. Yeah, so, but what is Zazen? Let's. All right. So we're going to chant another. We're going to also chant the identity of relative and absolute. That means so that the Heart Sutra is just one. It's like the first half of this book. And then the second half is about the identity of relative and absolute. I think we all like chanting here, don't we? I do. So I actually typed up a version that he has in the book that's a little bit different from our version that we do. And this is, so let's pass this out. And we'll chant this as well, the identity of relative and absolute. And it was written by this Shito Shi Qian. Anybody know Chinese here? I'm not a great pronouncer of Chinese words. But this Zen master was born in 700 CE. And he used to sit on this big flat stone a lot, and therefore wound up with the name Stonehead. Anyhow, this poem comprises one of the written esoteric teachings of the Japanese Soto sect that has been handed down from teacher to student, teacher to teacher within the Soto lineage as an important aspect of Dharma transmission, and as such is the embodiment of the mind of the enlightened one. So let's read this together. The identity of relative and absolute. The mind of the great sage of India is intimately conveyed west and east. Among human beings are wise ones and fools. In the way there is no teacher of north and south. The subtle source is clear and bright. The branching streams flow in the dark. To be attached to things is primordial delusion. To encounter the absolute is not yet enlightenment. All spheres, every sense and field, intermingle even as they shine alone, interacting even as they merge, yet keeping their places in expressions of their own. Forms differ primarily in shape and character, and sounds in harsh or soothing tones. The dark makes all words one. The brightness distinguishes good and bad phrases. The four elements return to their true nature as a child to its mother. Fire is hot, water is wet, wind moves, and the earth is dense. Eye and form, sound, nose and smell, tongue and taste, the sweet and sour, each independent of the other, like leaves that come from the same root. And though leaves and root must go back to the source, both root and leaves have their own uses. Light is also darkness, but do not move with it as darkness. Darkness is light, do not see it as light. Light and darkness are not one, not two. Like the foot before and the foot behind in walking. Each thing has its own being, which is not different from its place and function. The relative fits the absolute as a box and its lid. The absolute meets the relative like two arrows that meet in midair. Hearing this, simply perceive the source. Make no criterion. If you do not see the way, you do not see it even as you walk on it. When you walk the way, you draw no nearer, progress no farther. Who fails to see this is mountains and rivers away. Listen, those who would pierce the subtle matter, do not waste your time by night or day. So, this poem expresses the 5 relationships of absolute and relative, and we're going to be studying that. And these 5 relationships are considered to be one of the most significant studies in Zen. But Bernie also talks about a quote by Henry David Thoreau that he feels is really relevant to this study of these 5. There's 5 relationships. Thoreau said, "Crack away at these nuts of man's origin, purpose, and destiny as long as you can. The very exercise will ennoble you, and you may get something better than the answers you expect." And it's just that he feels that, we're going to be studying this, but we may not get any new answers, but just the process of studying this is, we may get something that we don't expect. That process of cracking away, trying to understand the relative and the absolute. That cracking away process is really important to do. So the title of this in Sanskrit is Sandokai, Sandokai. And so the san in Sandokai means, it refers to the realm of differences. That's the relative. The word do is sameness or equality. Kai has to do with unifying sameness and difference, and is associated with the image of shaking hands. Shaking hands, right? So when we shake hands, are the hands 2 or are they 1? 2 or 1. They are, Bernie says, they are not 1, they are not 2. They're not 1, not 2. Thus, Kai is the unifying of the absolute and relative as 2 hands shaking. As seen as 2 hands shaking. Right, Sandokai, right, is the identity of relative and absolute, where identity doesn't mean literal equivalence, but rather that sameness and difference are not 1, not 2. Synonyms for the word san are dharma and form, as in the Heart Sutras, form is emptiness. Another synonym for san is practice. Dharma, form, practice, as in Dogen's statement that practice is enlightenment. Practice is enlightenment. So synonyms for the word san are dharma and form, as form is emptiness, and practice, as in Dogen's statement that practice is enlightenment. Synonyms for the word do, san do kai, are Buddha and emptiness. Amazing. The synonym for kai, san do kai, is sangha, which is also the meaning for the word is in form is emptiness. Form is emptiness. Sandokai is therefore the three treasures, right? Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. It is form is emptiness. It is practice is enlightenment. And when we say that kai means sangha in the sense of harmony, we mean the harmonious relationship that exists between these two hands, absolute and relative. The harmonious relationship. When they are classed as not one, not two. And the harmony is nothing but the fact that Buddha, emptiness, the absolute, and Dharma, form, the relative, are the same thing. As such, they interpenetrate freely without obstruction. Wow, I love this. You know, it's sometimes hard to really kind of think about, but you can just feel that it just feels good. That's how I am. I'm kind of more a feeling person. So the first line, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the first line, the mind of the great sage of India. The mind of the great sage of India is intimately conveyed, west and east, the first two lines, the first sentence. So Shi Tao lived, he's a great Chan master, when Taoism was flourishing. And he tried to bring Taoism and Chan together. Taoism, Chan. In Taoism, the sage is the architect is the archetype of the accomplished hermit. That's in Taoism. You have the sage. And in Mahayana Buddhism, we have the bodhisattva, right? The ideal of the he calls it the archetypal social worker who is not primarily concerned with his or own enlightenment, but with the enlightenment of all beings. So it's different. It's just, so it's not with ascending the mountain, but descending the mountain, going into the world to help everyone become enlightened. Part of this bodhisattva ideal is the realization that precisely because no one is separate from the world, there is actually no real difference between accomplishing one's own enlightenment and that of all beings. Right? There's no difference. In fact, one can't be fully enlightened until and unless The whole universe has realized the way. So we can start right here, right here. Just, right here is a lot. And the great sage of India is, the mind of the great sage of India is a synonym for this, for the trees, clouds, sky, sound of planes, of cars. These are nothing but Shakyamuni Buddha, nothing but me. The mind of the great sage of India is intimately, so the word intimately has a very special meaning and flavor in Zen. Intimate. We always say be intimate with your life. What does that mean? Right? It's an intimacy so intimate that we don't even see or grasp it. Like we're looking for our glasses and it's right on our face, right? It's so intimate, it's so part of you, you can't even see it. That's intimate. Things as they are so natural, so obvious, that we can't accept them as they are. That's intimate. It's so obvious, so natural. We not only can't accept it, we can't even see it a lot of times, most of the times. And that's why it seems rather secret to us. But it's not secret. There's nothing secret about it. It's just that it's so close to us. Such an intimate part of us that we don't see it. And the mind of the great sage of India, another synonym for this mind is Maha, what we were talking about earlier, right? There's nothing outside it. Wherever you point, that also is the mind of the great sage. It's like the sky. Bernie says it's like the sky. The sky is everywhere, right? It includes everything. Clouds, acid rain, birds, the galaxies, right? The sky and all it contains are the mind of the great sage. And the mind of the great sage is being intimately conveyed right here, right now, in a manner that we can't see or grasp. If we could grasp it, he says, it would be like the sky grasping the fact that birds are flying in it. The sky is so intimate with the clouds, the birds, planes, and the rain. There is no separation whatsoever. To grasp implies separation. Like that. To grasp implies separation. So this issue of one and and diversity is what Bernie really practiced as he became more and more involved in social action, right? And he felt this one and diversity was really a primary issue, not only in Zen, but in the world's peacemaking. So the three tenets that Bernie, a simple way to, I think, look at it is the three tenets of a Zen peacemaker, right? Practicing not knowing, which is really this radical openness, and then bearing witness without judgment, just bearing witness to what is arising and noticing judgments because they will arise, and just notice it and let it go so that you can fully bear witness to what is going on. And then if you can do those two well, there is some action that arises that should be helpful, loving. I shouldn't say should be. It's an action that is going to arise. Sometimes it's helpful and sometimes it's not. So we have to practice. It's all a practice here, not knowing. Yeah, this not knowing is a big one. Letting go of fixed ideas about yourself, others, and the universe. That is huge. That is so huge. And Egyoku Roshi, who's the abbot of Zen Center of Los Angeles, she has a beautiful statement written on the Zen Peacemaker page about these three tenets, commentary about the three tenets. And she says, with regular application, the practice of the three tenets can become a way of living from the center at all times. And although the tenets are taken in order, when you study them, the practice is not necessarily linear. Each tenet reflects the others. They are seamlessly embedded in each other, flowing as center, circumstance, and action in an ever-unfolding and endlessly varied circle of life. So this not knowing, Egyoku says, I describe not knowing as a flash of openness or a sudden shift to being present in the moment. A flash of openness or a sudden shift to being present in the moment. This dropping away of the things you have relied upon for a sense of stability may lead you to examine what you believe is your center, to take shelter in the place before anything arises, a place of emptiness and profound silence, a place of the deepest rest where self-interest has not yet entered. So I think that's a good place to stop. We have 8 more minutes, and if I can answer any questions. This is a lot to really contemplate. It's a practice of our lives. So I consider it very important. I mean, not important, it just is. And I thank Bernie and Jishu who put the 3 tenets together, and the wonderful commentary by Egyoku as we try to understand what this really means in our life. And I really look forward to diving into Infinite Circle. There's so much that I was really actually reading from this beautiful book that, it just takes time to sit with, to grok. This is spiritual practice to me, you know? It's deep inner work here. What does this mean for us? How do I translate this into my actions, my everyday actions, everyday thinking? Step by step.
Could I ask you what the 3 tenets are again?
Yes, it is not knowing, bearing witness, and it's the third one has changed. It started as healing action when we were working with Bernie, then it changed to loving action, and now it's like action that arises when you really practice the first 2 tenets.
Would you be willing, Sensei, to share a story of how these 3 tenets have worked for you since you worked so closely with Bernie Glassman?
Well, you know, it's a practice that I really try to practice. Even as mundane as during session, we've had the services of the practice of Zen Frankie cooking. And I realized I had certain ideas about how to cook oatmeal. And Zen Frankie totally opened up that world for me in terms of what he put in the oatmeal. Lavender, red peppercorns, or was it pink peppercorns? I was like, oh. You know, like, you need to cook oatmeal this way. That doesn't work. You know, that's knowing. Not knowing is, okay, I'm really open and pleasantly surprised. Bearing witness is another one. I was telling you about November being such a sad month for me. Just bearing witness without judgment to that sadness. You know, like the judgments arising, like, you know, you're not strong, you know, you're weak, you're crying. Right? That's a judgment.
Yeah.
So I bore witness and I noticed the judgment arising, and then I let it go. And really kind of tune into the heart area and just tune into, you know, what's going on around me. And on Thanksgiving Day, I really felt acutely, because I had just been home in Hawaii in June for the whole month, and I saw my family and, you know, all my hula sisters and all my Lao sisters. And I was just really feeling it at the holiday, you know, to not be with family. And thanks to Henry, he was over we had a Thanksgiving lunch, and my husband, and we just sat and we were just talking, you know, about what Thanksgiving means to me, right? And it's about family, and I let myself feel really sad that I was not with my blood family. Mm-hmm. I was bearing witness to that and not like blocking, because I noticed that I can do that. I can distract myself from that easily. Mm-hmm. And I remember, that's why I love Ram Dass's quote, right? Suffering did not make me more fearful. It made me more real. Mm-hmm. Being sad is part of the human condition, right?
How were you able to like let it go without distracting yourself?
Yes. So it's a practice. It's really a practice. And I think what really helped me was in November we started sitting more. We started sitting from noon to 1. And I started doing that. And that was in response to, there was a lot of things going on at the high school, and MG mentioned that. And I thought, you know what? Let's just sit more. Let's just see what happens with that. And that's what happened for me. I was really more in touch with what was happening. And I could also see resistances, and I could say, okay, you know what? This is a little scary, and I'm just going to try it out. And it was really healing, actually. So it's a practice, and I credit just sitting, actually, in helping with that. And we're continuing that, the noon sits.
Yeah, I wanted to add to that because there was really rough at the high school and just social turmoil in general, and having an hour, I can't make good before work when it's 6 in the morning and 6 in the evening we're making dinner. So since I'm local, the lunchtime sits for an hour. An hour is hard to do by yourself, but when you're sitting with 3 other people even, it's so much easier, and like not even sitting with the purpose of, I'm gonna let go and I'm gonna get enlightened. It's just the act of sitting. It's not being smart or anything, it's just sitting, it's resting. That's been very good.
Thanks, Ian. So, maybe one more question, no? Susan?
It's a thought.
It's a thought. Okay, good.
I appreciated your talk so much that you said, a lot to chew on, but did you say, it doesn't matter whether you said or it occurred to me, it seems that not knowing is absolute and bearing witness is relative. Because at the end, you were quoting the Roshi who... Thank you. And she said that bearing witness is contextual. I think that that's context. So that seems to me to be relative. Mm-hmm. And then the action, so if not knowing is absolute because there's no duality, no separation, openness, spaciousness, and then bearing witness is context or relative, then the 2 hands shaking is neither one nor the other, which is a loving action. Possible? Maybe?
Sounds good.